The prison cell is 6 feet by 8 feet, a concrete box in the basement of the presidential palace that still smells of the previous regime's executions, bleach, iron, and a faint, sweet undertone of decay that no amount of scrubbing can remove. You are 31 years old, a mid-ranking colonel in the army of a medium-sized nation most people can't place on a map, and 3 hours ago you were teaching military history at the staff college. Now you're on your knees on a cold floor, hands zip-tied behind your back, a black bag over your head, waiting for the firing squad. Your crime: you refused to order your battalion to fire on student protesters. The old dictator, a man you served loyally for 9 years, has decided that refusal is treason. The bag smells of onions and your own terrified breath. You can hear the guards loading their rifles in the corridor, the metallic clack of bolts, the murmur of bored men discussing a football match, someone's phone buzzing with a text. This is how you die. Anonymous, principled, stupid. Then the lights go out, the generators fail. A coup attempt, you'll later learn, though right now it's just chaos. Gunfire erupts somewhere above, muted by concrete. The guards flee. Your cell door swings open, and a sergeant you've never met saws through your zip ties with a bayonet. His hands shaking so badly he nicks your wrist. He presses a Makarov pistol into your palm, the grip still warm from his body heat, and says, "Colonel, the 3rd Battalion has seized the radio station. They're asking for you to lead." What do we do? You don't have an answer. You're bleeding from the wrist, your legs are numb, and you can still taste the onions from the hood. But the gun is in your hand, and somewhere upstairs, the old dictator is probably running for his helicopter, and the people are in the streets, and the vacuum of power is opening like a sinkhole beneath the nation's feet. You could walk away, you could find your wife, your daughter, and flee to the border. Instead, you chamber around. You walk up the stairs, into the smoke-filled palace, into the shouting and the sirens and the smell of burning government documents, and you start giving orders. By dawn, you are the most powerful man in the country. This is level 1, and you have already made your first irreparable mistake. You believe you are the hero of this story. Level 1, the accidental leader. The first 48 hours are a fever dream. The presidential palace is a looted shell. Broken windows, overturned furniture, a portrait of the old dictator slashed with a bayonet and left hanging in ribbons. You establish a command post in the basement bunker, a Cold War era facility with flickering fluorescent lights, a bank of olive green military radios, and a map of the country pinned to the wall that still has the old regime's troop dispositions marked in red grease pencil. The air is stale, recycled, tasting of diesel from the backup generators and the metallic tang of everyone's adrenaline. You haven't slept in 2 days. Your hands have a tremor you can't control. You are not supposed to be here. You were the compromise candidate, a respected military intellectual, clean enough to satisfy the street protesters, military enough to satisfy the officer corps. The Revolutionary Council that emerged from the coup has appointed you interim president of the Transitional Council for National Salvation. The title is a mouthful of euphemism. What it means, you are in charge until elections in 6 months. You believe this. You genuinely, sincerely believe this. You tell your wife 6 months. Then we go back to normal life. She looks at you with an expression you will later recognize as the first flicker of fear, not of the situation, but of you. Your first act is to free the political prisoners. The basement cells are emptied, and you stand at the door as men and women who have been tortured, starved, broken, shuffle out into the sunlight. One of them, an elderly poet whose fingernails were pulled out with pliers, grips your hand with his bandaged fingers and whispers, "Don't become him. You swear you won't." You give a speech in the central square, standing on a podium draped in the new transitional flag. The old flag with the dictator's emblem hastily cut out, leaving a hole in the fabric. The crowd is 50,000 strong. They cheer your name. The sound is physical, a pressure wave of hope and hunger that vibrates in your chest cavity. You've never felt anything like it. It's the most addictive substance on Earth. Level 2, the Consolidator. The first assassination attempt comes in the 3rd month. A car bomb in the palace parking garage planted by loyalists of the old regime. It kills your driver, a man named Sergei who had a daughter in ballet school and a habit of humming Soviet pop songs. You are not in the car, but you feel the blast through the palace walls, a deep, visceral thump like a giant's fist hitting a door, and you watch the smoke rise from your office window, and you realize that you are now a target, not the interim president. You, the specific biological entity that is your body. Someone wants it to stop existing. The knowledge changes something in your brain chemistry. You can feel it, a switch flipping, a door closing. The emergency powers begin. You justify them beautifully. The old regime loyalists are a threat, the economy is in free fall, the borders are porous, and the elections are too important to be derailed by chaos. The Revolutionary Council grants you temporary enhanced security authority. You use it to purge the military of old regime officers, replacing them with men who are loyal, not to the nation, not to the Constitution, but to you. You know their names, their wives' names, their children's vulnerabilities. You promote a young captain named Dima, who was with you in the basement on that first night, to head of presidential security. Dima has dead eyes and absolute loyalty, and he starts building a network of informants so fast and so thorough that within weeks you know what your cabinet ministers dream about. Your approval rating is 78%. The international community sends aid. You are invited to speak at the United Nations, and you give a speech about democracy and renewal that earns a standing ovation. On the flight home, sipping champagne in the presidential jet, the old dictator's jet, the gold fixtures still in place, just the monogram scraped off, you look at your reflection in the window and see a statesman. You do not see what is growing behind your eyes. The elections are postponed 6 months, for stability. The crowd still cheers. Your wife no longer looks at you directly. You barely notice. Level 3. The Strongman. The elections are now postponed indefinitely. You've been in power for 2 years, and the justification has shifted. The country is not ready for democracy. The institutions are too weak, the opposition too divided, the external threats too severe. You believe this. You've written articles about it, published in state-aligned newspapers under a pseudonym, arguing that your particular nation requires a particular kind of transitional authoritarianism, a guided democracy a third way. You've read just enough political theory to make your rationalizations sound profound. The articles are well argued. You've convinced yourself. The palace has been renovated. The basement cells are gone, replaced by a wine cellar stocked with French vintages recommended by a sommelier you flew in from Lyon. The bunker is now a state-of-the-art command center with encrypted satellite communications. Your office is paneled in imported mahogany, the desk a slab of marble from the nation's only quarry, polished to a mirror shine. You wear bespoke suits from a tailor in Milan who flies in for fittings and never asks about the payment source. Your watch is a Patek Philippe, $180,000, a gift from a construction magnate who was awarded the contract for the new presidential highway. You never asked for the watch, it just appeared. You wear it anyway. The repression begins softly, so softly you barely notice. A journalist who wrote unflattering articles is detained for tax irregularities. An opposition leader is charged with corruption. The charges are even true, mostly, and sentenced to house arrest. The state television network, now under the direction of a loyalist, begins each broadcast with a montage of your achievements. The new hospitals, the foreign investment, the steady hand guiding the nation. Your face is on every screen, every newspaper, every billboard. The image is retouched, your jawline sharpened, your gray hair darkened. You are not a man anymore. You are an icon, a symbol, and the symbol belongs to the state. Your daughter, now 17, asks you at dinner why her friend's parents whisper about you. You tell her that leadership is misunderstood, that history will vindicate you, that she should focus on her studies. She doesn't speak to you for the rest of the meal. Your wife, across the table, doesn't speak to you at all. The silence is louder than the crowd's cheers ever were. You retreat to your office, pour a glass of the French wine, and review the latest intelligence report. A growing protest movement in the provinces, funded by foreign NGOs, possibly linked to the old regime. You authorize enhanced surveillance. You don't call it oppression, you call it security. Words matter, you've learned that. Level 4 the Purger, the protests become a crisis. A general strike in the eastern provinces, led by a coalition of labor unions, student groups, and a charismatic opposition figure named Callan, a former ally from the Revolutionary Council who has broken with you publicly. Callan gives an interview to a foreign news network in which he calls you the very thing we overthrew. The clip goes viral. Your internal polling, conducted by a private firm at a cost of $50,000 a month, results seen only by you, shows your approval rating slipping below 50% for the first time. You stare at the number on the page, a cold clinical digit that feels like a verdict, or your hands are shaking again. Not from exhaustion this time, from rage. Dima, your security chief, presents a plan. It's called Operation Clean Sweep, and it involves the coordinated arrest of 200 opposition figures, union leaders, and hostile journalists over a single night. You approve it at 2 a.m. in your marble office, after a bottle of wine and 3 hours of pacing. The arrests happen at dawn. The images leak. Men and women in pajamas being dragged from their homes, children screaming, the muzzle flashes of security forces reflected in wet pavement. The international community condemns you. The UN issues a statement. Your foreign minister's a holdover from the Revolutionary Council who still believes in the original vision, resigns in protest. You accept his resignation with a terse, typed letter. You don't even sign it yourself. Callan is arrested in his safe house, a farm outside the capital. Dima sends you a photo of him in handcuffs, his face swollen from a beating. You stare at the photo for a long time. This was your friend. You overthrew the old dictator together. You remember a night, 15 years ago, sitting on a rooftop in the capital, drinking cheap beer and planning a future where men like you would never need to fear their own government. You delete the photo. You tell Dima to transfer Callan to the Black Site, a former military barracks in the desert that doesn't officially exist. You tell yourself you'll release him when the situation calms. You know, somewhere deep in the locked room of your conscience that you won't. Level 5. The Paranoid. The palace becomes a fortress. You no longer trust Dima. He knows too much, he has too much power, and the same calculus that made him useful now makes him a threat. You promote a second security chief, a woman named Zara, to oversee Dima's operations, creating a deliberately overlapping chain of command. They hate each other. You encourage this. You receive separate briefings from each, comparing their reports for discrepancies, mapping the gaps in their loyalty like a cartographer charting hostile terrain. Your paranoia is now a fully operational system, a bureaucracy of suspicion. You've started carrying a sidearm, a compact Sig Sauer, even inside the palace. You taste your food before meals. You have a taster, a young lieutenant, but you've stopped trusting him, so you make him eat first and then wait 20 minutes before you touch anything. You've lost 15 pounds. Your sleep is a disaster of nightmares. Firing squads, betrayed handshakes, your daughter's face dissolving into Callan's. You've started seeing a psychiatrist, a discreet Swiss doctor who flies in monthly and prescribes a cocktail of anti-anxiety medication and sleep aids. The pills help, but they dull your edge. Dima notices. Zara notices. You know they notice, and the knowing makes the paranoia worse. The feedback loop is perfect, a snake eating its own tail. The economy is beginning to crumble. Sanctions from the West have cut off access to international banking. Inflation is at 40%. The state media reports 4%. You've started believing the state media because the alternative is too terrifying. You surround yourself with yes men who tell you that the nation is thriving, that the protests are foreign funded, that Callan was a traitor, that you are the father of the nation. You promote a professor from the state university, a man named Vasily, to be your chief propagandist. Vasily has a doctorate in semiotics and a genius for narrative control. He crafts a mythology around you. The humble colonel, the reluctant leader, the man who sacrificed his soul to save his nation. The state broadcasts run a documentary series called The Burden of Leadership, which portrays you as a tragic hero, sleepless in the palace, laboring for your ungrateful people. You watch it alone in your private theater, a tub of popcorn untouched. You don't recognize the man on screen. You miss him. Level 6, the king, you win. The protests are crushed. Callan dies in custody, officially, of a heart attack, though the autopsy report is classified, and the doctor who performed it has been relocated to a remote posting in the mountains. The opposition is shattered. The international community, distracted by larger crises, has moved on. Your grip on power is absolute. And so, at the peak of your control, you do something that shocks even your inner circle. You declare yourself president for life. The constitutional amendment passes through a rubber stamp parliament with a 100% approval rate. The referendum to ratify it wins 97.2% of the vote, a number so perfect it is obviously fraudulent. You don't care. You've stopped caring about appearances. The mask is off because the mask was always the point. The personality cult reaches its apogee. Vasily has your image placed everywhere. Statues in every town square. Portraits in every government office. Your signature reproduced on every piece of currency. The national anthem is rewritten to include your name. School children sing it every morning, hands on hearts, before reciting the 12 principles of national unity, which Vasily ghost wrote and you've never actually read. Your birthday becomes a national holiday, celebrated with military parades and fireworks, and the release of thousands of white doves that are actually dyed pigeons that shit on the reviewing stand. You find this secretly hilarious, but no one else laughs, so you don't either. The wealth accumulation reaches staggering proportions. You own, through a network of shell companies and front men, 40% of the nation's natural resource extraction. oil, gas, rare earth minerals. The contracts are all routed through a holding company in the Caymans, managed by a law firm that specializes in the finances of people like you. Your personal net worth is estimated at $8 billion, though the exact number is unknowable even to you. You have a private yacht, a converted cruise liner with a helipad and a submarine bay, though you never use it because you can't leave the country for fear of arrest. You have a palace in the mountains, a palace on the coast, a palace in the capital. You are richer than any human being has a right to be, and you are trapped inside your own country like a rat in a gilded cage. Your family is gone. Your wife lives in a separate wing of the palace, a silent spectral presence who communicates through staff. Your daughter fled to Switzerland on a student visa and never came back. You receive a letter from her once a year on your birthday. The letters are brief, formal, devastating. I hope you are well. I am continuing my studies. Please do not contact me. You keep them in a locked drawer in your desk, next to the Makarov pistol from that first night. Sometimes late at night, you take out the pistol and hold it, not with any intention, just to remember what it felt like when you were a man with choices. Level 7. The Under Siege. The cracks appear, then widen, then shatter. A leaked diplomatic cable reveals your offshore holdings. The Panama Papers, or whatever the next iteration is called, name you as a primary beneficiary of a global kleptocracy network. The international community, long complicit in your survival, suddenly finds its moral backbone. Sanctions tighten into a full embargo. Your foreign assets are frozen. $2 billion gone in a keystroke. The economy, already brittle, begins to collapse. Breadlines form in the capital. The state media cannot hide them. A new opposition forms, not from the old political class, but from the streets, a decentralized, leaderless movement of young people who grew up under your rule and hate nothing more than the face they see on every wall. They use encrypted messaging apps and satellite internet terminals smuggled across the border. You shut down the internet. The protests grow larger. You send in the military. The images leak anyway. Soldiers in your uniform firing on unarmed teenagers. A girl in a red coat bleeding out on a cobblestone street, her phone still recording. The image goes global. It wins a Pulitzer Prize. You are now officially a monster. Dima betrays you. You've known it was coming for months, but the actual moment is still a shock. He appears in your office with a document, a signed letter from a coalition of generals, requesting your voluntary retirement for the good of the nation. The language is courtly, but the ultimatum is absolute. You have 48 hours to step down, or the military will withdraw its support. You stare at Dima, this man you plucked from obscurity, this man who has killed for you, and you see in his eyes not hatred, not ambition, but exhaustion. He is tired of you. They all are. You are not a god king. You are a burden, a tumor the body politic is finally rejecting. Level 8. The Exile. You flee. It's not dramatic. No last stand, no bunker suicide, no blaze of glory. You board a cargo plane at 3 a.m., carrying a single suitcase and a diplomatic passport from a small African nation that owes you a favor. The plane is cold, unpressurized in the cargo hold, and you sit on a metal bench next to crates of machine parts, shivering, the Makarov pistol still in your jacket pocket. The flight is 7 hours. You land in a country you've visited twice, a place of red dust and indifferent bureaucracy, where the local strongman welcomes you with a handshake and a bill. The arrangement is simple. You pay $50 million for residency facilitation, and in return, you get a villa behind high walls, a contingent of guards who report to the local intelligence service, and the guarantee that you will not be extradited. The money buys safety, it cannot buy dignity. The villa is comfortable, a Spanish colonial with a courtyard and a fountain, bougainvillea spilling over the walls, the air heavy with jasmine and diesel fumes. You spend your days in a routine of deliberate monotony, a swim in the pool, a lunch of grilled fish, an afternoon of reading history books you should have read 30 years ago. You are writing your memoirs, a project that will take years and produce a manuscript that no publisher will touch because it is a tissue of self-justification so transparent they embarrass even you. You write about the coup, the reforms, the betrayals. You never write about Kalin. You never write about the girl in the red coat. Your health declines. The years of stress, the pills, the sleeplessness. Your heart is a damaged muscle, your liver a scarred organ. You have a minor stroke at 67, and the recovery is partial. Your left hand has a tremor that no longer comes from adrenaline. You walk with a cane. The local doctors are competent but indifferent. You are just another exiled warlord in a region full of them, a patient whose check clears. You start to think about death, not with fear but with a kind of exhausted curiosity. What comes next? You've never believed in anything. Not really. The revolutionary rhetoric, the national mythology, the personality cult, it was all machinery. You're not sure if the void will be a punishment or a relief. Level 9, the Forgotten. 20 years pass. The villa's paint peels. The bougainvillea has grown wild, swallowing the courtyard walls. Your guards have aged with you, a cadre of elderly men who play dominoes in the shade and no longer bother to patrol the perimeter. You are not a threat to anyone anymore. The international tribunals have moved on to fresher tyrants. The indictments still exist, somewhere in a Hague filing cabinet, but they are dormant, academic. You are 84 years old, and you have outlived your relevance. This is, in its way, the worst punishment, irrelevance. You spent a lifetime demanding the world's attention, and now the world has forgotten your name. Your daughter sends you a message through an intermediary. She is 50 now, married, with children of her own. She does not want to see you. She does not want her children to know you exist. The message is not cruel. It's worse than cruel, it's indifferent. A notification of non-relationship delivered in the tone of a utility bill. You read it twice, fold it, and place it in the locked drawer with the Makarov pistol and the birthday letters. The drawer is almost full. You have collected a lifetime of evidence that you were loved once and that you destroyed it. The memoirs are finished. They sit in a manuscript box on your desk, 800 pages, unread by anyone but you. You've titled it The Burden of Leadership, a final reflexive theft from Vasily's propaganda. You understand now that you were never the author of your own life. You were a character in a story the nation told itself, a role filled by a man who happened to be you, and when the story ended, the man remained an empty vessel. You are not a dictator. You are not a colonel. You are not a father, a husband, a revolutionary. You are a collection of memories that no one else shares, a library that will burn when you die. Level 10, the Mimble Room. You die in your sleep. It is unremarkable. The guards find you in the morning, your hands folded on your chest, your face peaceful in a way it never was in life. The local authorities are notified. The embassy of your host nation files a report. Your body is cremated per your instructions, and the ashes are placed in a plain urn that sits in a storage room for 3 months, while the lawyers argue over your estate. The $8 billion, frozen for decades, is dispersed in settlements to victims' families, a fraction of a cent on the dollar of suffering. The villa is sold to a French hotel developer. The manuscripts, the letters, the pistol, they are thrown into an incinerator by a cleaning crew that doesn't read your language. There is no state funeral. There is no period of mourning. There is a brief item in the international section of a few newspapers. Former dictator dies in exile. The photograph they use is from 40 years ago. The young colonel on the balcony, arm raised, the crowd a sea of hope beneath him. You are frozen in that moment, forever the hero, forever the promise, forever the lie.